Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm interested in making the tax code work for families instead of the special interests here in Washington. And I'm interested in fixing this tax code so families struggling to get by and maybe save a little for their college education can do so. And this budget talks about reforming the tax code for corporate America, but it doesn't talk about reforming it for families and individuals. I think we can do better. For example, there are 15 different tax breaks for higher education, including 9 for current expenses, 2 for past expenses, 4 for future expenses. The IRS publication on tax benefits for education is 90 pages long. This isn't a tax code designed for working families. It's a tax code designed to make money for accountants and tax planners. Don't you think we should make some sense of all of this and help working families?
Mr. Chairman, I totally agree, and the President's budget has in the past calls for individual tax reform as well. The President's laid out principles to guide that. I think that the idea of tax simplification, broadening the base, is very important. The President's put it in the context of a fiscal plan where I think we have a number of objectives that have to be achieved at the same time. We've got to get our fiscal house in order. As part of that, we need to raise more revenue. And I think the tax reform ought to produce that ability to both raise revenue, simplify the tax code, and make it so that ordinary people don't need to have complicated hours-long processes or go to accountants for simple tax forms. I participated in 1986 in tax reform. I know how hard it is to do, and I look forward to working with you on a bipartisan basis to get that done.
And I was pleased to see the administration taking more concrete steps toward tax reform in this budget. And again, I look forward to working with you and the President to make the code simpler and fairer for families and individuals and to help strengthen the economy. And when I talk to middle-class Americans in Michigan back home in my district, they're frustrated by the current state of the tax code. And I mean, rightly so. I mean, they don't understand the complexity. And they may not know that there have been 4,400 changes over the last decade, but certainly they know that there's been a lot of them. And it just seems unfair to me that the tax code forces Americans to spend over $160 billion to comply and 6 billion hours, almost 13 hours per person. That's the average taxpayer. I mean, every year complying with the code is more expensive, more costly, and particularly when you look at the very tight margins small businesses are on. I mean, this is a huge cost to them, and frankly, it should be their time and money, not the IRS's. And I commend the administration for proposing revenue-neutral tax reform in the bill, but again, don't you think individuals and families deserve a tax reform that makes the code simpler and fairer for them too?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that we need to do both individual and business tax reform, and in the context of overall tax reform, to be clear, we do not think it can be revenue neutral. We think that there needs to be additional revenue to help get our fiscal house in order, and the budget calls for $580 billion of additional revenue. On the business side, our goal has been very clear. Could not agree with you more that we need to really go at all of the special provisions, the deductions, the credits that complicate the business tax system. We need to enable ourselves to lower the rates so that our statutory rate could be more competitive with the rest of the world. Our goal in business tax reform is really to stimulate economic growth and job creation. And I don't believe it can be separated from overall tax reform. I think if you look at the decisions that small businesses make, even how to organize, whether to be a partnership or a corporation, it makes a big difference what their relative treatment in the individual and business tax systems are. So just intellectually, one has to look at it as a whole. I think that this is a big challenge. This is something that will require Democrats and Republicans standing shoulder to shoulder, because every one of the provisions that we would eliminate to broaden the base has people and businesses that support it. And that's a process that can only be done through bipartisan